Welcome back to Supreme Fuzzler. We are doing Venture Brothers Season 2, Episode 11, Viva los Murteos. One of my personal favorite episodes in Season 2, and just an all-around great episode. Before we get into it, I want to get on, as I've talked about throughout this discussion series, the book that I have, the writing and art of this series. This is the only episode not written by Doc Hammer and Jackson Publick. It is written by Ben Edlund, the maker of The Tick, and a really, all-around pretty interesting guy. He's the co-producer at Cartoon Network, from what I understand. He's written episodes like The Clone Wars and a few other things, and done some interesting stuff. He's the only person that you talk about in this that Doc Hammer and Jackson Publick consider an honorary guest writer consistently. He's apparently the one that introduced the two of them, Doc Hammer and Jackson Publick, and the one that helped them with the pitch of the show, and he still had the pitch book as one of the things they talk about. He actually had the book about how the show was going to be pitched to the studios and stuff. And it really was an interesting little discussion of their history and how having him as an extra writer here was really fun to bring back those old times and really have a great showing. And it's just interesting to think about how this episode, which in my opinion really does well at keeping with the story and the flow and the feeling of Venture Brothers, is not written by the two main writers of Venture Brothers. So good. So, I just wanted to discuss that at the beginning, just to have a little understanding that this episode is written by a different person. Let's get into it, though. It starts with it's a first-person view, where it shows like it's red, which I never understood until just now, where apparently that's how the Monarch's goggles are, I'm assuming. And I never really understood that. But that's why it's red. So, you see 21, talking to this new guy, apparently, who's the first-person view you're having. And hey, Texas, welcome. Well, you better get your game face on, because that's the Venture compound. And 24 shows up. It's like, why are you wasting your breath on the new me? They don't even last a month, usually. And Monarch starts doing a speech. They say, smoke him if you got him. Monarch gets to wrap up his speech and fucking thing. And so they go on the attack. And it shows this first-person guy. It's a bunch of Monarch henchmen, dying and screaming. And then it shows Brock, and then he's running from Brock. And then his head goes reverse, because he just got his head broken, and he's dead. And then his lights go out, and the intro starts. And as the intro ends, it has, he lives from Rusty. And they apparently res this guy back up. But he freaks out, tries to choke Rusty out, and Brock has to grab a fucking fire extinguisher and bash his head in order to fucking kill him again, apparently. Because he was freaking out. Then they res him again. Throughout this whole time, we've only seen a first-person view from this guy's perspective up to this point, by the way. And Rusty talks about haha, I have beaten God at his own game. And the Venture-stein, well, they haven't said that as his name, but that's going to be his name, is like, Father, well, don't call me Father. And it's just interesting to see a whole Frankenstein-esque thing that they're doing. But again, they're still doing it from first-person view up to this point. And Dean asks why that head is African-American. And fucking Rusty's like, Brock destroyed his head, and that's all I could fit. Ah, Rusty. But interesting how, holy crap, this is some hella good science. Even though it's, Frankenstein shit. But still, it's amazing that he is, he just rezzed this dude, straight up. Then it goes to a van driving up, and it's the fucking Scooby-Doo, Enter the Groovy gang. It's a Scooby-Doo group, and Ted, the leader of the group, is like, something is strange in the state of Denmark. We have to go figure out how to get in there. And then one girl, the Daphne of the group, is like, I have been trying to get home for years. You don't want to go back in your box, do you? Being out of your box is a privilege, not a right. Fucking asshole, but the times. Then it shows Valerie, is her name, knocking on the back of the van, and it shows the Shaggy of the group, who's apparently named Sonny, who, the dog, the Scoopy of the group, is a son of Sam dog, telling him to basically murder, and that you are filled with wrath and sin, you must kill. And Sonny, the Shaggy, is basically like, you gotta talk to them, say something to them. And then as they open the door, he's freaking out, and they're like, I bet you'll come out for some groovy treats, and wave some fucking pills around, and they jumps out of the van and using all the old cartoon Hanna-Barbera sound effects. All those sound effects, you know? And he falls out and they're all laughing. It's kind of horrible if you think about it, but damn, this show is interesting. The thing I want to say, what the book talks about, is that this episode, they say, is that he was still reading the pitch book. Ben Ederlin was. So this was a little too cartoony and didn't have as much of the things that they were trying to go for after season 1. And how they had to do a lot of rewrites, kind of. But all of this was his storyline. Everything that he did was himself. It's just interesting to think about how someone else was able to craft such a well-crafted story. But how you can tell, like this parody stuff, he was still seeing it as a parody show when they were already leaning towards their own type of world at this point in the series. Then we go back to the Ventures, who now we actually get to see Venture-stein. And they mention his name, and Hank's like, I love that name. And fucking Rusty's like, Dean, right now Hank is better than you. And Venture-stein's freaking out about Brock because he is all scared of him, obviously because he killed him twice, apparently. And then a fly gets on Venture-stein's eye, and they have to smash it and shit because he's fucking doesn't react to it. It's kind of interesting how, like, he is active but not active as a human creature at this point, as a living human. But, you know, I am curious because he obviously grows, and that's really what's really cool about this. Rusty really crafted something nearly fucking, not nearly, actually super science-y. Resurrection's insane. Even pseudo-resurrection of this level. It goes back to the Groovy gang, who are going into what I think is the manufacturing wing of the compound, but I'm not exactly sure. No, it's a specific section of the compound, though. And they're like, we have to go search for clues and try to do something in this area. And one of them, I forget which one, is like, why do we have to do that, basically? And Ted's like, well, we wouldn't have ran out of gas here if we were supposed to search for clues here. Sonny points out, we have a 5-gallon can in the back, man. We're not out of gas. Why do you hate God? I don't hate God, man. Well, God thinks you hate him, and that's just as bad as hating him. And fucking Ted just goes off on Sonny about how he could just kill him, basically, and how why wouldn't he just do that? And after he leaves, the Son of Sam dog is basically like, dude's pissing on your lawn, man. Like, Jesus, just fucking wrecks you. Just taking it like a bitch, but I get it, kind of, like, when you're a drugged out, fucking actually mentally disabled in a way person, trying to get away from / work with your insane dog that tells you to kill things. I don't know. Ted's the douche in this group, without a doubt. Goes back to the Ventures, and Venture-stein is like, Brock bad, oh. And Rusty's like, yeah, good, keep trying to, make some new sentences and shit. And Brock's trying to, like, understand why he's staring at him, and he's like, dude, come on, stop fucking being like that, basically. And Orpheus comes in and is like, per our tenant agreement, I am informing you about our little get-together of over 10 people from 7 p.m. to ? Orpheus, he's such a neat little, he's a truly old man type of guy, where Rusty still has, like, a party feeling and kind of is in touch, it seems. Orpheus always has that out-of-touch feeling, despite him, I don't think he's much older, if that, any older than Rusty. But he just has, because he's a magical guy, I guess, he's so much more out-of-touchy. And obviously it's because he researches more ancient stuff and has that style of personality, and particularly the thing that the Master talks about, which is he's a fucking know-it-all, and no one likes a know-it-all, but that's just how he rolls. It's just curious, because I don't think there's much difference in age, and yet he's so different as a person. Granted, that's obviously due to different upbringings and lives, and they're both 40-year-old men, so I can't, how many, all 40-year-old men are similar. Without a doubt, that's not how things work. Not all 40-year-old anyone, or anyone, are very similar in just basics like that. Orpheus then kind of notices the Venture-stein, and is like, is that man dead? And Rusty's like, no. Well, Mr. Venture, you never cease to amaze me. Then he goes to Brock and kind of offers him to join him, like, because we have shared a cheese sandwich more than twice, and I feel that you have a quiet desperation. Brock, of course, refuses him, but I don't know, he leaves the offer there, basically, kind of thing. Then goes back to the Groovy gang. specifically Ted and the two girls. Ted's looking around, and the two girls are talking, Valerie specifically, the Velma, is talking about how men are going to just be studs and they're going to get quietly gassed to death. Well, specifically this one, rather. How the Y chromosome is just a messed up X chromosome, and that how they would just be a man's incomplete for female, or just a walking abortion. So intense. Then Ted's like, I found something, and they kind of look over, like, all Scooby-Doo-like. and it's, I almost said Dracula. It's Orpheus showing up. And he's like, who is Hector Rodriguez, and why do I keep getting his junk mail? And Ted is like, we found a Dracula factory. Goes to the boys who are like, I can't find Africa, America anywhere on the map. And it's fucking like, oh my god, kids. How do they not have history or, geography in those learning beds? Because they're like, we should go learn more in the learning beds. But Venture-stein's in there, so they can't do that. Venture-stein is learning about everyday Joe. And he's like, I often ask myself, what's good about child labor? And it's like, oh my god, Rusty, what are you doing? Which flows into, we're going to Rusty, who is talking to General Man-Hours, it sounds like, from what if I recall he says, which is the guy from Guess Who's Coming to State Dinner, who's talking about his son. And he's basically like, yes, they can probably go into the field. Yeah, chest cavities can hold a lot of C4. Totally. So how many? Oh, that many? You want that many? Of course, yes, sir. And he hangs up the phone. He crosses off his list of things to do. Beat God at his own game. It's so awesome. And just is like, I guess things are finally coming up rusty. Then it goes to Brock, who is practicing throwing knives. He keeps missing. And then, he does a throw, it misses completely, hits his radio, and then the lightning really coolly flashes behind him, kind of to indicate how fucking off his game he is right now. Almost cursed level off his game. Then it goes back to Venture-stein, who Everyday Joe is telling him, you are ready for a life in bondage servitude. And just like little Jorge here, you can love a job well done. And I guess this indicates to Venture-stein that prostitute. And because he was talking about prostitutes earlier, I forgot to mention. And he just busts out of the goddamn fucking Venture bed and just starts screaming prostitute and leaves the room, apparently in search of prostitutes. Then it goes to Brock, who knocks on Orpheus's door, who apparently has come to the party because he believes he is a tapestry of quiet desperation, the way that Orpheus told him. After that, Orpheus just kind of, you look around the party, you see a bunch of magical people. Orpheus introduces one of the Amazon's most learned shaman, a Don Impossibile or some shit. Basically Don Impossible or some shit like that. Then it goes to Ted and the girls again, and here the girls is where the girls are talking about the last men will just be studs, gone off to be quietly gassed to death, or just be used to create babies, and that's about it. Fucking... And they see Venture-stein, and they're like, correction, Dracula and Frankenstein factory. And the Valerie, kind of goes in for a cop of feel at the other girl, and she's like, please stop. And I'm just... The way this episode's written is very interesting in a way. It's obviously parodying Scooby-Doo, and it's trying to play upon some of the tropes that Scooby-Doo utilized in a way where, was Velma lesbian? Was Sonny a drug addict? The dog being a talking dog? Ted being an asshole? So, but it's just weird because of those little bits of, I don't know, it's very seeped in 2000s and even 90s feelings that I'm like, ugh. Goes back to Brock, who has the alchemist come up to him and asks him, hey, yo, so-and-so, what brings you here? And he's like, I'm off my game, basically. Rusty calls them and is basically like, I need dead people, lots of dead people, as many as you can get me. And Brock's like, okay, how do you suggest we... Well, seeing as you are you, just get me some dead people. Help me get dead people! Oh, fun. Then it goes back to Sonny and Groovy. They're walking down the hall, and fucking the dog, Groovy, is just going off about how you're full of wrath and sin. Start doing the master's bidding, Sonny. And Sonny's like, you give it a rest. Why do you keep doing this to me, man? And then they come upon Hank and Dean, and they're like, a hippie. And they're fucking, the dog and him just run off, while Hank and Dean, for whatever reason, are like, we gotta follow him. Goes back to Brock, who is getting from a Dixie cup what apparently is the root of the death vine extract. And he's like, is this a Jonestown deal? And like, don't let the Dixie cup fool you. This is a everlasting vision. And I never understood the Jonestown joke when I was younger, and now I do, suicide. Ugh. But that really went over my head for like a decade. Was very confused. The joke there was, don't let the Dixie cup fool you. It was hilarious. Which obviously is the joke. It's just, I never understood what Brock was trying to allude to on his side. Brock says what the hell and drinks it also, by the way. Then Sonny comes back to his group and is like, I saw those kids that I killed back in Rio. And they fucking flash back to a scene where the boys back into Sonny and the dog. And the dog and Sonny freak out and straight up kill Hank and Dean. Smash the dog eats Hank and fucking Dean's face gets smashed in by a flashlight. Ted freaks out about this and is like, do you think I need this kind of heat? And straight up threatens to kill the Son of Sam dog and everything. And they're like, whoa, chill out. And they throw the bodies down the well and fucking Rusty and is like yelling for them, but probably never found them or found their dead bodies is what happened, which is tragic and horrible in a way. But fuck, man, you can see that like in that little scene, like for a brief couple frames there, you can see Dean's face is like obliterated, his eyes fucking falling out, while Hank was probably had his guts ripped out by that dog. It's pretty hardcore. Then Sonny freaks out, is basically like, I believe they're ghosts because I killed them. Brock's giving his story about how he fucking killed that henchman, and how like he's like, I saw this guy and I knew if I let him go he'd never come back, but then I also thought, you know what, kill him. And then the shaman starts going off about a dolphin and how he found this fish in the river and started fucking this fish in the middle of the river, and fucking it turned into a great dolphin, and while he fucked it, and Brock's like, what does that have to do with anything? And he's like, hot dolphin! It's like, you're insane. And Orpheus is like, he's one of the greatest shaman of all time, basically. And Brock's freaking out because he's like, you poisoned me. And then as he starts to hallucinate, and he's like, I feel bad for killing that guy, I think. And then he fucking like gets absorbed by the floor and starts having a hallucination about hot dolphins and fucking swimming across like the ocean with these dolphins. It's kind of insane and interesting, though. In the book, it talks about how this whole scene was done by Ben Edelin, that he had learned about particular characters in previous episodes through correspondence with them, and was able to utilize those particular characters in these scenes and in these parts, and how he wrote this entire hallucination part on his own without any rewrites. It's fucking awesome. Hank and Dean find the Groovy crew and are like, oh my god, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. This is our place. And they're like, you're not supposed to fucking be here. You're ghosts. We killed you. And they pull out a gun to be like, we're going to prove that you are, whether or not you're ghosts or not. And as they pull out the gun, though, Sonny's like, and this dog fucking talks. So fun. Goes back to Brock's little hallucination, and the dolphins talking about how the world, the secret to happiness is not in conquest, it's in empathy. But then a harpoon comes out of nowhere, and a giant hunter-gatherers with titties is in the distance after killing that dolphin, and fucking brings up Brock, and is like, you're supposed to you work for the government, there's no way that you can do this shit. You're going to special ops heaven, a G-Man Valhalla, where you poop secrets and shoot people and fucking just run around doing kung fu. It's awesome and amazing. Now shut your goddamn third eye for now and go kill motherfuckers. And as he does that, it goes into a whole Brock freaking out, coming out of his stupor, and is like, hunt! I gotta hunt! Then it goes back to the boys being chased by the hippies, who are like, you fucking are apparently not ghosts, because ghosts don't run from guns. What the hell are you? And then Sonny is like, dude, look. And then they apparently had ran into the clone room, and they see the clones, and Hank and Dean freak out, and Ted's like, oh, you are actually killable. You're just the same kids is what it is in all reality. And so they're like, all right, we're going to do something about this. But then Venture-stein runs in there, and they're like, oh god, we gotta run away from that. And then Brock shows up out of nowhere. Fucking Venture-stein picks up the fucking dog and starts choking him out. Brock blocks Ted, breaks his arm, shoots fucking Sunny with his own gun, and then breaks Ted's neck or some shit like that, and killing them both. And the dog's also dead. The girls run away. They escape. Rusty arrives. He's like, I got that radioactive chip in you, and I was able to track you down, Venture-stein. Brooke's like, dude, the boys saw their own cones. I think they're in like some kind of saw their own clones coma. And Rusty's like, boys, get up. Does a whole dad talk to them about how you ruined your Christmas present, but I'm gonna have to get you something better. So go eat some grilled cheeses and chill out. You're the best dad ever, aren't you, Dad? Damn right I am. At the end, he's like, alright, I gotta get that's a start. And he's about to cut the life support to all the clones, and Brock's there, though, looking at him all pissed off, being like, dude, are you really? Like, well, sorry, I just, I need some dead bodies. Oh, what an episode. After the credits, it's Brock in his Charger with Venture-stein, who has the bat mask on also. And he's asking for prostitutes, and Brock's like, don't worry, I got you, bro. And Venture-stein has a shoe made from a dog, and he's like, no, I don't think they'll give it away for a shoe, but don't worry, I got you, I'll pay. And fucking Venture-stein's Brock good at the end. So good. So, this episode was a really fun episode. As I said, it was written not by Jackson Public or by Doc Hammer, by Ben Edlin. One of the things they mentioned, and even I thought of this, is that they thought that he didn't do well with the boys. They're not really in the episode, so it doesn't really hurt them, but the whole Africa-America thing seemed really ridiculously naive. Ridiculously dumb. They have way gone beyond and past that level of naivety and idiocy. But besides that, this episode does really well at, like, showing off some of the best characters. I really, really like this episode. It's one of my favorites. It's interesting. I have ups and downs. Venture-stein's not my personal favorite episode, and favorite character, and I don't really like Ted, and I don't really care about the Groovy group, even though I think they're a really good parody. But I also like the way the clones are revealed in this, I think was handled very well. How Brock is in this episode is really fun. That whole hallucination scene is so amazing. The little bits of Orpheus, the actual using of the alchemist in this too, showing that he is part of that magical world that Orpheus is part of. All of those things are really well done and really fun. And I don't know, it's just a really good episode. Also showing one of the other side deaths of the boys. I think the only other one that we don't have mentioned will be the one that happens in season whatever, you'll see. I also like the cool lightning that shows off Brock in the fucking later in the season. In that part where he's throwing the knives. Super interesting. And just all around, just a very fun episode. So please like and comment, talk about the episode, just tell me what you think. We'll discuss further what parts of the episode are and theories about it. Specifically, like, for me, Brock's hallucinations fun. It's one of the interesting ones, obviously. Venture-stein as a character is interesting. How did you think they did well in the Groovy character? You think they should have brought them back more? Or should they, have kept them the way they were? Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe in the video. Hit me up as you continue, where we hit any podcasts and stuff. And thank you very much for listening. This is Supreme Fuzzler. I hope you have a good day. Go Team Venture. Goodbye.